So the youth of areas like Mabopane, Soshanguve, Garankuwa came together under some organizations to storm the BMW plant in Roslyn. And they'll be going after other car manufacturers, demanding instant jobs. In this video, I'm going to show you what's going on here. But if you stay with me right up until my biblical reaction, you'll hear an incisive question from podcaster June Hlongwane. It'll be followed up by a fatal commentary by Thomas Mabaso of the 360 Experience. You'll see the fight that we're up against in our quest for South Africa, prosperous South Africa, to show up. You ready for that? Okay, press like. Let's go. Let's start here.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to this latest episode of Power Plays and Paydays here on EBNet Stream. I'm delighted to be joined by another special guest today, another one of the rising podcasting stars in South Africa, a gentleman by the name of Bonsai Shongwe. Bonsai, welcome and thank you for joining us.
Oh, what an honor to be here. Thanks for the invite. Appreciate it.
One thing I've noticed watching your podcast is you always have an optimistic tone, even when you're talking about the negative. And I take my hat off to you in that regard, that you've managed to maintain so much positivity when sharing with others.
Yeah, we have to, because I think that's the foundation. How the perspective we choose and the decision we make about the future is actually the first huge battle we have to win, because if we manage to all just get negative, then we don't have what it takes to move things in a positive direction. So yeah, thanks for noticing that.
That's 100%. Before we get to talking about the podcasting, which I think is so important in terms of open debate and discussion and getting the truth out there, I want to talk a little bit about your background as an entrepreneur. Yeah. And the importance of entrepreneurs in South Africa, ultimately, and the impact on the economy. And linking to that, I then want to ask one or two pointed questions around BBEE, employment equity, and so on, to get your view in that regard. But maybe firstly, you are an entrepreneur. You've had success in that respect. I can see that it's part of you. What do you see as the importance of entrepreneurism in South Africa for our economy?
Oh, it is everything. It is literally everything. Everything will rise and fall based on how many entrepreneurs we have and how much we enable them to do what they need to do. Because all of society's problems can only be solved not by government, because they don't make money, but by entrepreneurs. And even if government itself does something about it, well, they only have as much money to pay for it as they do entrepreneurs. So entrepreneurs are so vital for all of society, because any problem we have can literally only be solved by an entrepreneur. Because that's what entrepreneurs are, right? They're people who just get bugged by other people's problems and take personal responsibility for other people's problems. And then of course we get to say thank you, hopefully with profits and and cash flows to keep them alive.
And creating then employment within communities where South Africa is sorely lacking in that regard. And that's where it comes to my question around the BEE laws and employment equity. Now, I was always in favor, having not really ever thought about BEE and employment equity, but I always felt that we had to move forward from the past. We had to readdress some of the, call it, inequalities that had been created. But now I'm starting to realize that perhaps there was an unintended consequence of stifling the natural talent that would rest in South Africa. So can you give me your views on BEE and employment equity specifically, and how that might be impacting our economy?
Yeah, so these things sound like great ideas until you look at the actual consequences. And it's amazing that even when the negative consequences come, the number one answer you hear is someone says, no, 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 with BE we seek to, right? Um, and you know, I've often used the example that if I come from a culture where giving someone R1 million is an insult, and I walk up to you, Leon, and I insult you with R1 million, right? I'm still your best friend because you don't care what my intentions are at that point, right? You'll enjoy the outcome. And so that's the thing with BEE and all these social engineering led transformation is it breaks so many rules. Number one, BE and employment equity, all of that breaks some fundamental psychological rules. It's horrible to tell someone that you don't get to compete like others, right? Because then you immediately kill all Black entrepreneurs. Okay, number two, it is bad economics. It's horrible economics to add whatever you add as a hoop in front of any entrepreneur affects the whole system, and it limits what each entrepreneur can do, and they literally at some point, that's my story, get so irritated that I do nothing right now that has to go through South African law. Because at some point you fill in a form, you read this, and here's another interesting thing. Entrepreneurs naturally really can't deal with that nonsense in that beginning phase, especially where you just need the excitement to carry you through, the passion to run, and all of that. And in fact, that's why I've ended up doing a lot of things online, and moving something. Can you imagine moving some things that I do out of the country because I realized they asked me to press 2 buttons. You need me to press 10 buttons. Now, here's where it goes as well. Any policy you make doesn't only have unintended consequences in terms of that specific form, but it always creates a chain reaction to where I got into commenting about political matters because I was affected negatively by government policy, all done in my name and all worked against me. Because now we come back to the psychological matter. For starters, all South African policy says bonsai does not exist, right? All South African policy says there is no Black guy who would just like to be passionate about solving problems and would like to just go out and make it happen and will find the resources to do it. So all of it then gets set up for every Black guy must run to daddy government, and otherwise, why wouldn't they? I mean, you are previously disadvantaged, which I think is a very stupid term as well. Because I think you were previously babied. Am I correct to make that assumption? I think
I haven't
so.
thought about it that way, but you could very much be right.
You are previously babied,
Uh,
but I don't think anyone will support you breastfeeding and you say, yo, but I'm previously babied. It doesn't matter what someone previously was. And to ever set up any policy based on what someone previously was is the dumbest approach, because you only set up policy for what someone is, right? And so, but they like previously. This is the third thing: is it breaks a lot of uh, B is so immoral. It's not even funny, because they fight for it to be previously, because now you can have someone in abject poverty who's black, and you have our billionaire president who's black and connected, but he gets to keep previously so he can do the next BE deal, while the person in abject poverty, well, they previously but not connected. And so that's why we've seen it just serve the elite, which is how they like it.
So, what did you think or feel when President Ramaphosa spoke of when the black man sees a factory that's owned by another black man, they feel warm in their heart?
I
I
think
thought that
most
was
people,
quite condescending.
uh, uh, he, yeah, I'm trying to stay nice, like I was taught growing up. So no, that's garbage. I think the one thing that warms our hearts is a bank notification, period. And this whole, so now, my access to the economy is by watching Ramaphosa's factory. It is so condescending. It's not funny. And it it and it's the racism of low expectations. I think that's how it breaks the psychological rules, because if you just assume that everyone with brown skin can't do anything without government, and because I know your history, right? I think we know if we ran anything like that, we'd have a horrible society where it's like, I know your history. You were naughty in grade 5. You can't run a company now. But yeah, but that's my history. We've got to measure me on where I am now, and do what needs to be done for me now. So yeah.
So, even in the case of employment equity, again, I can understand the theory behind it, but at the end of the day, you're disturbing supply and demand, and all of a sudden, by giving a leg up, you perhaps miss a whole lot of rungs that you would normally go through, where you build experience and knowledge and confidence so that you can make decisions in a competitive world at the end of the day. Because we're not just competing within South Africa, we're part of a global picture. So that as well, I think, has almost harmed the average person coming through the system, because they get to a point where the level of responsibility can be intimidating. And if you haven't gone through the hard yards and you haven't had the hard lessons, it becomes difficult to then deal with. And you just get churn and you get
You
this job
set
hopping. Often I see this job hopping taking place in South Africa at the moment.
you literally set people up for failure. You literally set people up for failure by saying, I'll give you a leg up. So how I rose into entrepreneurship, um, I was mentored by a white guy before EE. And it wasn't because he was so nice or not. Actually, it had nothing to do with that. It's just business imperatives required that he showed me certain things, and my skill and talent then got me to a point where the person I started working for ended up being a competitor, and then ended up being my number one supporter to be on the industry council. And 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 two things come out of that. Number one is I get to keep my success. I get to keep that confidence because nothing builds confidence like prior success. I get to keep it because it was before EE and it was before BEE. And I think another problem with the thinking of BE and why they will fight so hard even when they see it fall down, it's just so it's built on so many assumptions. So the first assumption is if you black, this is what you lack. We know from your history. Number two, if you white, we know you will do everything in your power to make sure that every black person in your company gets nowhere. And we know that from your history too, right? And it has baked in so many ridiculous assumptions that assume certain intentions on everyone. And it's very funny that under apartheid laws, many white businesses broke national party laws to work with certain black people in certain ways, right? When it was against the law. So we have so many stories of people breaking the law to empower black people when that was good for business. And it's amazing that we think when that law is removed, we've got to force them to do it because we assume they will break the law not to do it. But number three, I need to say this as well. Our policy is so horrible because personally, I wouldn't mind redress laws because it is in our constitution, right? So you take what you take. So I wouldn't mind redress laws if all they did were incentives and rewards, right? But it's all angry in terms of it's all coercive. So you will do this percentage or get punished. Well, you know, if all they had done is said, if you do it well, we'll cut your taxes down 2 percentage points for every whatever. It actually would have been much better because it wouldn't have, you know, incentives are incentives. It's hard to mess up an economy with incentives, as opposed to hard coercive force, which personally I don't even believe government has a right to do.
Hiya pals, greetings from Sammy. EBNet is proud to bring you top quality content from experts across the financial services industry in South Africa and internationally for free. Your support helps us in doing this. All we ask is that you subscribe to our channel by clicking the subscribe button below, share this video with others you think will benefit from it, and give us a thumbs up if you are enjoying the content. That way you help us help you. Thank you from the team at EBNet. For more great content, please visit www.ebnet.co.za. Ciao, ciao, and bye-bye.
So that's what's going to be my next question. So, I mean, the reality is we can pinpoint the negatives, but what is it that you, as an entrepreneur, would want to see happen? Is it just simply a case of get out my way and let me do, all right? Or is it a case of, right, that there is some redress and support in that sense? Or does it go right back to the start around the education system and making sure that the next generation comes through with the ability, the empowered to be able to carry out or to live as economically active people?
Well, I mean, absolutely. I think, and the difficulty with South Africa now is that we have two situations, and our starting point tends to be about one situation. Okay, so we have, and when we say the past, it gets very confusing because somehow 2009 is not the past, right? The past is only pre-1994. but now we actually have two pasts to deal with, which is the apartheid past and the ANC past. And both have done much damage to South Africa along racial lines. So starting with what we should do now, I think we are in no position to be discussing redress before discussing and doing and experiencing growth. Because otherwise we're just redistributing decline. And what we want to do is to redistribute prosperity, right? Because then there's a difference between just pure envy and wicked envy and greed, which is basically, I saw some, whatever, and I want it for myself, and it always goes to comrades, and really caring about people. And so if we really care about anyone, we have to redistribute or share. I'm trying to be nice. I don't like this garbage stuff, right? So I just accept it because it's in the Constitution, but it doesn't work. It doesn't. It doesn't. And it has the assumption, the big thought pattern has the assumption that money doesn't naturally move around, and money does, and it gets sucked out in all directions by personalities, by skills, by talent, by just how people connect, things that we don't understand. And I really believe if you just grow, make sure that the economy is growing, and only then we can discuss redistribution. And so we've got to focus on education and growth, because I was created as an entrepreneur by growth, because we were at 4 or 5%. So some of the opportunities came to me is because when things are growing, someone needs somebody else. You actually create a problem for entrepreneurs, and the problem becomes, I need someone to help me because I have more responsibility, and things get redistributed. And I think so as long as we focus on prosperity-based transformation, which I argue that it is natural, it is automatic. I went to school with a couple of kids when later on, when multiracial schools started opening up, and it's a couple of the students there at the school, because it was a private school, were sent by their families, because the mother worked in that family as a housekeeper, but the kid was in a private school with me, and the parents were literally paying 5 times for the kid's education that they were paying to the mom, right? And all of those kids are doing quite well now. So absolutely, education is where we start. Number 2, growth. Number 3, then you can all have the redistribution conversation, and I won't be there because I'll be out there empowering the real people. Because when there is growth, you can empower everyone, and it does go across.
So to me, government is there to provide the platform. So be it education, health, protection in terms of regulations, not overprotection. They need to create the framework for us to ultimately live out our talents and thrive through that. They need to get out of the way and let the free markets take its course, kind of thing, because you'll find naturally people will come through, they will take up opportunities. As people learn, they will become entrepreneurs themselves. It's just part of the natural way of things, and that through that process of generating that growth, creating those opportunities, it's only natural in a country where there's 90% black people that economic transformation will happen. It might take a while, but it will naturally happen through that. And the one thing, and it was clear from the 2000s, we do have that entrepreneurial spirit within us. Okay, I always refer back to the Afrikaans saying of a boer maak 'n plan. We've got that, you know, we can find the solutions, and we used to lead in so many ways, be it in arms, in medical or whatever, because we had that spirit amongst us. But governments almost stifled that. It's tried to take too much control, and whether that control has been from the heart in terms of redressing the past, perhaps, or whether it's been from I want to remain in power, I want to retain the votes. I mean, like who really knows at the end of the day? But obviously, corruption has now looted the state coffers, so their ability to create that platform has now also become quite shaky. And that's why I'm a big proponent of private capital in South Africa. And I know it's a big step, but we've got to reinvest in our economy. We've got to stop looking at government, because we can't solve that other than through the vote ultimately. But we've got to start investing back in South Africa, which comes at a risk, but have some faith that there will be that growth will also result in returns. And if we don't, and before I'll stop my monologue, but if pension funds in particular, our audience, doesn't start to do that, to invest back in South Africa, and not just through the listed markets, but through private market opportunities, infrastructure development, and so on, the member that we're catering for that's going to retire in 30 years' time we're not going to achieve that result for them. We're not going to put them in a position to be able to retire comfortably, because the cost of retirement would be so high if the current situation continues. So maybe just to pause at that point and get your thoughts on that.
Yeah, no, I absolutely agree with you. And you know, this is what has happened with many things. When the electricity collapsed, private actors came in and connected us to the sun. When the police collapsed, private actors came in and helped us get, you know, find some way to get protected. And I think definitely between while we processing this government out, which I think it's very positive. I'm actually very positive about our prospects as a country, because at least, you know, we are processing them out, and it's actually getting more irritating now, because it's inevitable. And so definitely we do need to invest in, because we will have to live with this 20, 30 years from today. And it's our actions today that determine what life looks like a decade or 2 or 3 from now. And absolutely. I think you said it so well. I'm thinking, besides saying, yes, correct, there's not much I could add there.
So you speak about the processing of the government out. So I mean, if you had asked me, I don't know, 20 years ago, would I in my lifetime ever see a non-ANC led government in South Africa? I would have just laughed at you. I was like, are you crazy? That'll never happen. So again, that was just bias and indoctrination on my side. We're now sitting in a situation where the ANC's polling results are so poor that it is almost inevitable. 2 questions. I'm seeing the rise of the podcaster in South Africa, and I'm seeing the growth in the number of interactions and views and comments and all the rest that's taking place online. There's the accessibility now from a broader range of people to be able to listen to people like yourself on that. There's also coordination that I'm seeing amongst the podcasters to get the message ultimately out there. So how influential do you ultimately think that is? And then the second question that I have, which we can come to afterwards, is after the ANC, who? And that's, I keep on looking and I'm, okay, well, I don't know if there's anybody that really gets me excited in terms of things. So I was interested in your thoughts on that.
Yeah, so I think one of the big reason that many podcasters came on the scene, including myself, is to answer that question, after the ANC, who? And I can answer that question. After the ANC, the citizens will vote for the who and give them as much power as they need to, or they, as much as they're convinced. And so that's why we're working so hard to be educating citizens. And we have a book that's coming out, to just simplify these matters, and we're going to spread it amongst the younger kids who are not so nostalgic, for the ANC, and remembering 1994 because they were probably just born then. Because whoever comes will be a reflection of the populace, and so that's why we're gonna work day and night while the ANC is processing out to set the population up, and at least just 10% of the population being shifted in a certain direction makes a huge difference. And so that's why we're doing what we're doing, some of us. And I know there's so many podcasters out there. They're concerned, they're looking forward and saying, "Oh, let's educate people now." And so with podcasting growing, I'm very happy because at least you have enough of a voice continually speaking to citizens. I just wish that I was very excited when they were talking about cheap internet all the way out to rural areas, because it means more of what's online gets out further. And of course, they're not supporting that to happen currently, but I think it'll happen in the end. So that's where the hope is. The hope is there's so many of us, like myself, Citizen Concerned, Thomas Mabaso, Summer Sambit for the younger ones. There's so many of us, Mike Sham, Morning Shot. So many people who are getting out to different sides of the country, and that's where the hope is, because the more people listen to Bonsai, the better South Africa will be.
So that comes to my next question, because someone once said to me the other day, yeah, but all these guys are biased and they're just pushing their own opinion. So what would your response be to that? I mean, you've used the term education.
Yeah.
But it's ultimately, I mean, how else can it be anything but bias? But what do you do to try to make it impartial, if I could put it that way?
Oh no, we need to hear all opinions, including the biased one. So I'm biased on the side of entrepreneurs because I've had that experience. And what needs to happen is someone needs to hear someone who is biased for entrepreneurs. So maybe I'm 90% correct. I've been told I'm 100% correct, but I don't believe them. Maybe I'm 90% correct, but people do need to hear that, because what has happened in South Africa is that the ANC has worked hard to protect the hegemony. And I'm using their words, right? And purposely weaned out anyone who's pro markets on all public platforms, and made sure to so that no one ever hears that being pro free markets, pro business, pro entrepreneurs is actually to the benefit of anyone. And I think people do need to hear that, even if it's a little biased. People are not dumb. They hear this, they hear that, and they compare and they think, oh, I think this. And so it's still important.
But you just hit the nail on the head there. You said people are not dumb.
Yeah.
That's the reality. I think the government sometimes assumes that perhaps people are dumb. So a T-shirt and a, free whatever will get them to vote in your favor. And I disagree. I think the South Africans are far more smart and I almost want to say needy than that. They have specific needs. They want certain things, and they will think ultimately for themselves.
Yeah. No, absolutely, absolutely. And it's funny that even the apartheid excuse, it kind of worked for about a decade or so. And then slowly you could see people going, no, man. No. And at some point they go, no, I don't want to, I don't know, no, just fix it, right? And of course you can understand from our history that it took a while. That was a good trick. Um, but at some point then people started to see no ways. Apartheid didn't make you steal 50 times, right? No, no. And I think people are not dumb, but also people have their visions and desires. They and they can run with ideology for a while, but after a while they're like, no, but my kids need to be working and not hanging around at the street corner. What's going on? So no, people are not dumb, and it's very funny that even the kind of people that people will often speak about and say, oh, these people are so dumb, they're just voting EFF and ANC. Um, they're actually smarter than most people think. And with the book I've been working on, I've actually spent some time going out to the communities where I think I'm going to bring it here, just to make sure the message doesn't go over heads. And I then engage in conversations. I'm like, wow, even I was a bit condescending. I don't need to dumb this down because people are way smarter than we think they are.
Spot on. Bonsai, we're coming to the end of our time. If any of our viewers want to find you on the socials, where can they find you? I will also put it all into the description below this video.
Oh, please go down to the description, Bonsai Shongwe with an S. If you're searching online, Bonsai Shongwe. And I think most best place to meet, let's meet on YouTube, because that's where we've been focusing for now. But yeah, let's connect on YouTube, and we try and keep you updated, educated, and every now and then entertained, while we really on a mission to see South Africa prosper.
So what I haven't told the viewers is that you're also a religious man. You're a pastor, and you end off all of your videos with a, what do you call it?
A biblical reaction.
Biblical reaction. So would you do me the honor and end us off today with a biblical reaction? And before you do that, thank you very much for joining us, and we would love to have you on again at some point, maybe once you've got your book finished, and we wish you the very best in that regard.
Oh, I'm excited to come back. It's actually called The Soft Life: 3 Secrets Comrades Don't Want You to Know. It's got a little warning at the bottom. This may change how you vote forever. So yeah. So I maybe I must end off with what I end off with. No man can serve two masters. Either you'll love the one and hate the others, honor the one and dishonor the other. You cannot serve God and Karl Marx. Now, very funny, because what that scripture actually says, it says you can't serve God and mammon, which is greed. And often when people think greed, they assume greed sits with the entrepreneurs, because they don't actually realize that, first of all, okay, we should be closing, but I'm finishing. If entrepreneurs did it for greed, they'd all quit as soon as they make 50 million. So it can't be greed. It's because at some point money makes no difference, but it's normally passion. Can I tell you who operates in greed? It's all these people who pose as fighting for the poor. And the good thing is history has already proven this right over and over and over again. If you want to find a scandal of stealing from the poor, check all the parties that say they stand for the poor. ANC, EFF, MK. You'll find so much unexplainable corruption, because that's where mammon is. So you can't serve God and mammon.
Well, on that bombshell, Bonsai, we wish you the very best. Thank you.
Oh, this has been so much fun. Thanks for the invite.
Cheers then.
And so I want to thank you from the bottom of my heart. Thank you. Myself and all our team thanks you. So, no man can serve two masters. Either you love the one or hate the other, despise the one and honor the other. You cannot serve both God and Karl Marx. So, let's make history together. Cheers.